There's hope on the horizon. Optimism is back. Nigerians are happy with the Super Eagles. The question is, will we be at the 2026 FIFA World Cup? Time is ticking. With that, I welcome you to another exciting edition of Sports Pizza. My name is Edwin Onyebole. So we have a lot to unpack on today's show. I will focus heavily on the Super Eagles of Nigeria and the new gaffer, Eric Chell. Don't forget, we have other talking points from other sports. Formula One, McLaren laying down the gauntlet. Can others pick up the challenge? That is the million-dollar question. Of course, a sad day in the history of boxing and a couple of talking points from the world of tennis. It promises to be another exciting time on the show. I don't do this alone. Of course, I have my guy, David Abe, with me in the studio. Also, don't forget the Tipsters Corner, where we give you the best betting odds for games every weekend. It promises to be another exciting time on the show. Let's go on a short break. When we return, we get the ball rolling. Welcome back. This is Sports Pizza. If you're joining us for the very first time, and I have David on set. David, welcome. How are you doing?
Yeah, Edwin, pleasure to be here as always. The Super Eagles were able to make, our fortunes change generally. What a difference a week can make. Last week we were talking about what are the hopes, and now our hopes are really rekindled.
All right, let's stick with the Super Eagles. David, what did you make of the performance across board?
I think I'm generally pleased with what I saw. I think the Super Eagles did what needed to be done. I mean, tactically, I was not expecting too much because this is a manager who has only had 1 or 2 training sessions with them. So tactically, we're not going to see much. But mentality-wise, the players knew what they needed to apply themselves. For the first time in a long while, I saw Super Eagles that were actually proactive, trying to win the ball back generally. We know Osimhen is a pressing monster, but when I saw Lookman and I saw Moses Simon, saw Chukwu is also deliberately doing it. I said, this is something that the manager wants to bring. And if this is how we're going to go for it, I think it's good for the Super Eagles.
You made mention of tactics, David. It was a 4-4-2, a flat 4-4-2, a throwback 4-4-2. Did that catch you off guard? Yeah,
I think it did. It did. Especially when I saw Moses Simon and Victor Osimhen up front, I thought maybe it would be Lookman, but we're going to even go for a 4-4-2. But I think he tried something different, playing Chukwueze in midfield behind. Not the best of experiments, but I think Chukwueze, for what it is, I think defensively, I think Eguavon also talked about it when he was asked about it, that Chukwueze defensively, even if attacking-wise is not the very best productively, but defensively it will give you a shift. So I think it gave us the solidity we needed with that 4-4-2.
Are we back on track?
Yeah, I think so. I think we are back on track. I think what now remains in our hands is in our hands. We need to beat the remaining teams and then we'll be good to go.
How feasible is that?
For us now, I think the biggest doubt will be South Africa. But the other things we have ahead of us, I think we'll be able to do enough.
Beyond the World Cup qualifiers, regardless of what happens, Eric Chell will be here for the AFCON. That is, if we go by the contract with him and the NFF. Yeah. How optimistic are you with respect to the AFCON? I know a lot of things can change, loss of form, injuries and stuff like that. But this crop of players have shown that with the right mindset and system, they can go far. How far can they go? Your projection into the future? I
think I like what I saw from Eric Chell in this fixture set of World Cup qualifiers. I think he looked at the foundation of what we did, going into the Nations Cup, how we got to the final, and he just built on that. I think with a few more sprinkles, I think if there are players who I think are going to add more to the Super Eagles, somebody like Tolu Arokodare, I was happy that he made his debut. I think he's 6'7" striker, somebody who can give us a different dimension. There's a lot of positives to look at.
Let's talk about negatives, David. I don't want to sour the mood of Nigerians, but I think there are certain players that over time should be on the peripheral of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. I have nothing against him, but there's a player you mentioned, Samuel Chukwueze. I think players like that, it's time I feel we get little or no action with the Super Eagles of Nigeria because we need the very best. If your position remains unchallenged despite putting up below par performances, I don't think it's the right mindset to have.
Yeah, I mean, you took the words directly from my mouth. I think somebody like Alassane Yusuf, I'm not happy that he was invited. At 24, you moved to the United States MLS. So no disrespect to that league, but I think it's not the level a 24-year-old who is aiming for the very top should be. So, and I look at the fact that he went to the MLS, he was called up. Somebody like Chidozie Awazim was not called up. Fine, you say he's not been a regular in the team, but I think there are a lot of players, Chukwueze, Alassane Yusuf. Frank Onyeka, I don't know what the future is for him generally, because I think he went to Wolfsburg to get playing time. He's in the best playing time form of his career, and he couldn't get a major run in the Super Eagles. So what's his future in the Super Eagles?
I'm talking about future, David. We said a lot of future.
Yeah.
What is the future of the Super Eagles with respect to home-based player? We saw two of them in this team, the goalkeeper and the midfielder. But an MPFL enthusiast will tell you, hey, we have players good enough to not just be part of the setup, but start and hold down their places in the national team. Do you agree with that school of thought?
I think it will be difficult to agree with it because, you know, most of this, the fact that the league is still not on TV, you need to be a follower of the MPFL to actually see these players go across match venues to cover it. So I think I compare it to what, you know, there was a lot of talk when Thomas Tuchel took over at England. The fact that he broke a tradition of actually visiting stadiums. You know, he said he has 4-5 giant screen TVs in his house so he can cover more matches. I think we need to get to the point where our Super Eagles manager can do that. You look at the positions in the Super Eagles right now. What are those positions? We need options. Can we get those players from the MPFL? I think that question will always remain.
All right, the question will always remain, but hey, Nigerians are happy, Nigerians are hopeful, Nigerians are optimistic. Away from the Super Eagles, David, let's head abroad, and this time the Nations League.
Yeah.
If UEFA needed a perfect advertisement on why the Nations League should remain, the quarterfinals give them that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think generally across the Nations League, even the promotion and relegation playoffs from B to C and, you know, C to D, everywhere there was action. So I think it's very important that this kind of results happen, this kind of matches happen. So it actually justifies their decision to make sure that, you know, European fixtures, matches that should be friendly matches, and now have actual jeopardy in them, and it makes it more exciting for the continent.
The final four teams in the semi-final, by the way, the semi-final will take place in June.
Yeah.
You have Portugal, you have Germany,
France.
you have France, and you have Spain.
Yeah.
Are these the best four European teams?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. For Spain, there's no doubt about it. Since the Nations League was introduced in 2022, they've been in every final. So I think there's a reason why they're that good. You know, France are one-time winners. Yeah. Portugal probably the previous winners.
The first winners.
Yeah, the first winners. They're no longer here. So I think there's a reason for that. Generally, I think the four teams that we have right now are the four best teams on the European continent.
Spain are defending champions of Europe.
Yeah.
Argentina, defending champions of South America. And also defending champions of the world. Over the weekend, I posted a tweet on my X handle, and I said that in this moment, I don't think there's a national team in the world that can take on Argentina and defeat them. Do you agree with that? I think Argentina have not just the best team, but they have the toughest mindsets. They go into grounds that ordinary will shake the biggest of teams. Absolutely. And they come out of those situations with result. In this moment, David, I think Argentina are poised to retain the World Cup title. Now, I know a year is a long time in football, super long time in football. A lot of things can happen. But the closest to Argentina is Spain. In a one-off, I don't think Spain can take out Argentina. Yeah, absolutely. I think Lionel Scaloni, unfancied manager, but the kind of work he has done, I think football keeps giving us this kind of script. These guys who are not the biggest of names, they take a national team who, you know, don't have the best of names right now, and then they just find, you know, the fact that he won the Copa America in 2022, and then from there he just kept on building on from there. I think the foundations have been built. He's seen the squad he has, and he has looked at it. What can I get from these guys? You know, Messi is on his last leg, but I have guys around there who are ready to graft and work hard. And he has built those foundations, and then they are reaping the benefits of it. Reaping the benefits of it. We're looking forward to the World Cup. Going to be staged in 3 countries: the United States of America, Mexico, and Canada. Will Nigeria be there? Will the Super Eagles be there? Crossed. Fingers crossed. We're hopeful that they will book that ticket. This is where we're going to break the first half of the show. When we return, we have a lot in store for you. Formula One is big on our agenda. Welcome back to the second half of the show, still Sports Pizza. Remember to follow us on our social media platform. The handles are showing on your screen. David, Last week it was Australia.
Yeah.
This weekend it was China, the Chinese Grand Prix, and McLaren won too. This time it was Oscar Piastri in first position, Lando Norris in second position, and the Mercedes of George Russell taking the final podium finish.
Yeah, absolutely. A race that was generally not, the most dramatic, but I think there was still a lot of subplots to be observed over the course of that weekend. I think I said it last week that McLaren have the best two drivers on the grid right now in terms of their quality. They are almost on par. You think either of them can actually push a championship challenge, and I think it's good for the team. It's clear McLaren are the best team on the grid right now. They have the best car. Everything is going well for them. For Ferrari and Lewis Hamilton, this last weekend, we talked about he's still trying to adjust. This weekend it even got worse. The fact that he had to be disqualified. I think the chemistry is not yet gelling. The engineers, everybody in the backroom staff, the whole setup is not yet working. And also for George Russell and Mercedes back-to-back podium finishes, first two races of the season. I don't know if the Lewis Hamilton shadow has left him. Now he can now actually be the driver he wants to be. So it's a fantastic season. Max Verstappen, he still wants to keep fighting, but I think generally his handicap right now is what he's having to deal with it. Right? So generally, McLaren are the team to beat this season.
I share your sentiment that they are the team to beat, but what have Red Bull done wrong? Because the second half of last season, we saw the signs. We saw that McLaren were on the up, and Red Bull sort of plateaued. But with Max Verstappen, you expect him to get the best out of his car. And now at the start of the season, they have been uncompetitive in the first two races. What has gone wrong?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty in the team generally. They're not sure of what the future for Max Verstappen. After 4 championships, I think they're not sure where next they're going to go. And we saw how they really put to the test last season. And I don't think, they've not been the chaser for a long time. And I think this has pushed a lot of pressure on them. I think McLaren have given them a challenge that they're not able to respond to yet. Yeah,
it's going to be fascinating to see how the season unfolds. For Lewis Hamilton, like David said, he was disqualified due to technicalities. There's what we call skid blocks on the underfloor of cars. So that skid block gives the car a certain maximum height that it should not exceed. Once you exceed it or you go below that height, it gives the car low floor advantage, and that was why he was penalized and subsequently disqualified from the Chinese Grand Prix. There's more Formula One on this show, so you don't want to miss any episode of Sports Pizza. And to tennis, David, it is the PTPA, that's the Professional Tennis Players Association, versus the ATP, WTA, ITA, and the ITIA. The PTPA took the other bodies to court, citing breach in scheduling, finances, image rights, the health of these players, and stuff like that. Now it has divided opinion in the tennis world. Where do you stand?
I think generally it's good that when the professionals actually fight for their own rights. Generally, the ATP is a body on its own, but the players themselves are the principal actors in this sport. So I think generally, if what they are fighting for, if they have enough ground to fight for it, I think generally they will have a way in court.
And for the man who formed this new body, that's the PTPA, Novak Djokovic, he agreed that there were some parts of the lawsuit that he didn't agree with. Maybe some of the wordings were too strong, but majority of what was in the lawsuit he agrees with. From there, we'll go to boxing, where it was a sad weekend for the world of boxing. Former 2-time heavyweight champion of the world. In fact, the oldest man to be the heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman, passed on at the age of 76. And David, what a stellar career he had.
I mean, this is generally a man who represented an era of boxing, heavyweight boxing, that was probably primed as one of the best. He had the Muhammad Ali's, we had Joe Frazier, we had himself, George Foreman, fantastic fighter he was generally. What he brought to the sport, the personality he was and everything, the general fighter he was, fantastic one for him, but unfortunately, may he so rest in peace.
Yeah, may he so rest in peace. And condolences from everyone here at Sports Pizza to the Foreman family. At this juncture, we'll go on a video break. When we return, we'll wrap up the show with the Tipsters Corner. Welcome back from that short break. It's time for the Tipsters Corner. Club football returns this weekend, and I can see the smiles on David's face. David, what do you have for us this weekend?
Yeah, in England, it's FA Cup weekend, and one fixture that jumps out at me is Bournemouth versus Manchester City in the quarter-final. That fixture is looking very good because Bournemouth are a very tricky side. Manchester City are not in the best of places. But results-wise, I'm going for a Bournemouth 1x in regular time. I think Man City are going to be taking all the way, so the 1x for Bournemouth is very simple. For the goals market, I think Bournemouth to score. I think they will be able to get a goal against Man City are very few. Then for the both teams to score, I think Man City also will to both teams to score, yes, for the options. Then I'm going to Italy also. I looked at Fiorentina versus Atalanta.
Yeah.
One thing that screams at me is goals.
Yeah.
Over 2.5 goals. Very good options, very good, market for it. Both teams are going to give you a lot of goals. Both teams to score as well. It looks very fantastic. For the results market, anybody winning that, I think it's not going to end in a draw. Both teams are not teams who like draw, so I think anybody winning that one. Okay. And also, lastly, Napoli versus AC Milan also. Napoli, AC Milan. I mean, Napoli will have the title race to fight for, so I think generally they will not lose to AC Milan because AC Milan are all over the place. You don't know which AC Milan will turn up. So I think 1x for Napoli if you want to be very safe. But you can go for a win either half for Napoli as well because you think they want to win. You may not be able to win, but they will try to win at least an half. Then for the goals market, I think over 1.5 goals. Over 2.5 may be too much of a stretch. Maybe 1-0, 2-0 in this picture, so over 1.5 goals. All
right, there you have it from Octopus David. Well, remember, Sports Pizza is not liable for any bet loss. We'll give you the expert analysis on the potential outcome of these games. David, before we leave the studio, Juventus have a new manager, former player Igor Tudor, has taken over after Thiago Motta was sacked. Where did it go wrong for Thiago Motta?
I think for me, first of all, the timing of this sacking feels a little bit odd. It seems like, where the point of the season where they could have salvaged it a lot earlier. I think for me, the problem he had was he's trying to build a new Juventus, a lot of young stars, a young team generally. The results were not forthcoming. So I think for Juventus, I think it's a hasty decision. I think for me, they would have given him one more season. Things have not gone as bad as they expected it. I think for me, generally, one more season would have helped him to consolidate on what they've done. This season would have been taken as a rebuilding process. But they decided to go the way of the sack, and hopefully they will find a way to rebuild again.
Igor Tudor has a deal till the end of the season and a potential 2-year deal depending on how well Juventus fare from now to the end of the season. With that, we've come to the end of another exciting edition of Sports Pizza. Do follow us on our social media platforms. We have lovely content for you on the YouTube page. It is Sports Pizza. David, always a pleasure having you in the studio.
Yeah, the pleasure is always mine. Always great to do this with you. From Abi David, it's goodbye.
And from me, Edwin Onyeboli said, do have a sporting weekend. See you on the other side. Stay safe.